Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to end the war with money, make peace with prosperity, and bring more wealth and ease into your life, then do we have the Awakened Show for you. Today I'll be talking with The Secret's Dr. Joe Vitale, best-selling marketing and spirituality author, speaker, and coach, and author of a new instant favorite of mine for prosperity and healing our relationship with money once and for all, The Awakened Millionaire. So today we'll talk about laying down your arms, making a truce, and discovering how to change our relationship with money and become awakened millionaires. That plus we'll talk about looking for butterflies, the power of push hands, sending cookies to debt collectors, the Incredible Hulk, J.C. Penney and the Golden Rule, and what a 1955 gull-wing Mercedes has to do with anything. So welcome to the show, Joe. Are you ready to shine?
I am ready to rock and roll. I've been waiting for this moment. Today's the day. This is it. This is the moment.
Woohoo! And I hear, and I didn't know this until just about 7 minutes ago, that you do rock and roll.
I do. I have 15 albums out, 5 of them singer-songwriter albums, and those things just burn down the walls. They are just high energy, high adrenaline, rock and roll.
Where do people find that? Because I've never heard it yet, and I want to.
Well, it's on iTunes. It's on CD Baby. You can go to a website called allhealingmusic.com. Allhealingmusic.com, and all of the music's there.
How did you get into that?
It was on my bucket list. When I was around 57, which is about 5 or 6 years ago at this point, I looked around and said, what haven't I done that I wanted to do?
Yep.
And I thought I've always wanted to play music. So I just declared it. I intended it. I surrounded myself with the best of the best. I've got a rock and roll museum drummer who has the same name as mine, Joe Vitale.
Perfect.
He's the drummer for Joe Walsh and every rock and roll band since the 70s. He's my drummer. I got a bass player who plays with Led Zeppelin and Robert Plant and the Dixie Chicks. He's my bass player. I've got the producer who is an award-winning singer-songwriter in Austin. I just gathered everybody around me and I said, help me do this. I learned how to sing. I learned how to play guitar. I learned how to write songs. I learned how to go in the studio, and I caught the bug. And within about 5-6 years, I created 15 albums. Rolling Stone magazine had a write-up in 2012, I think it was. Some of the songs were nominated for what's called the Posy Award, which is the Grammys of positive music. And more than anything else, I'm having a blast.
Woohoo! What I like so much about this also is when you said you were going to go into it, you surrounded, people are so important. You surrounded yourself with the best of the best so that you could shorten that learning curve.
And that's exactly right. That's a secret to success. I think delegating is a secret to success. Being in a mastermind is a secret to success. Getting tutoring, getting coaching, getting mentoring is a secret to success. All I did was declare that I wanted to do this, but I knew that if I wanted to do it in a short period of time, I couldn't do it by myself. There's too big of a learning curve. But if I brought the right people in, the skilled people, the professional people, the people who love doing this and are already known for doing that, they would elevate me. And that's what happened. I improved very quickly. The 5th album was better than the 1st album, but because the learning curve was condensed with all these people helping me. It's a great secret to success, for sure.
On top of that, I also think, I don't want to use the word pressure, but the fact that you have all these great masterminds, so to speak, around you certainly meant that you're going to practice more. You're going to try more. You're going to want to up your game as quickly as you can.
Absolutely. This is serious. This wasn't just playing around. This wasn't a wispy little goal. I got the pros in here, and these people, they do this for a living. And so they want me to bring my best to the game as well. And I knew that, consciously, unconsciously, however you want to word it. But we all elevated our game. But, you know, that's what's happened. Yeah. It's a blast.
So let's go from there if we can. Let's go into a little bit of a time machine, because I think it's important to understand where you've come from. Because if we've seen The Secret, and almost everybody has out there, and if you haven't, check out The Secret, then we don't know your backstory or what you've had to come from to get here. So can we take a time capsule maybe back to your first days working on the railroads? I'm going way back.
Yeah, you're a guy who's read my book, that's for sure, and you've done your homework, which is flattering. I'm impressed. Yeah, my first days on the railroad, as you know, my father took me to work on the railroad tracks, which is where he was working, when I was 5, years old. 5 years old. And I, of course, was excited to go to with my father to go to work. I had my lunch, I had my coat, I had my hat, but I didn't know that I was actually going to be doing labor. And he wanted me to realize that you can earn money, but you had to actually work for your money. He never gave an allowance, but he did provide opportunities for labor, for the work environment. So he had me on the railroad when I was 5 years old. And a wonderful thing happened. I realized I hated it. I realized I didn't want to do this. I realized there had to be a better way. Even at the age of 5, I'm starting looking around and going, what else is better than this? 5 years old.
It's so you go from there, you make some money. It's interesting because it made me think of my own life this morning, and I was thinking of how I started caddying at a young age and started working full time at a young age, and it flipped things on its head. In other words, I didn't learn about a healthy relationship with money. I learned I had to work hard for money, and I had to work myself. If you wanted to make big bucks as a caddy, you carry 2 bags at once, and you go out twice as long.
Right. Right. And I think that's how a lot of us learn how to make money or how money comes into our lives. And it took me forever to de-wire that programming, because for the longest time I thought, well, the only way to make money is with labor, sweat, actually being out there in the dirt. And that's what I was taught to do. I was taught a lot of other things because of my father as well. He said, if you want to double your money, fold your dollar bill in half and put it back in your pocket. And those sound charming and they sound funny, but that's all scarcity thinking. The problem was I didn't know it growing up. Like everybody else, I absorbed all of this programming, and I realized that if I want to buy books, which I was in love with even as a kid, I got to go out there and dig ditches. I got to go and tamp ties. I have to work on the railroad, do stuff I didn't like to do. And it took decades for me to awaken to the realization that that's not true. That's simply one way to bring money into our lives. And for most people, it's the only one they've ever heard of: hard work. And that actually doesn't even work.
So let's go back. So we've got you working on the railroads. We know you want to be a writer. It seems like this was a passion of yours. You make some money. College wasn't exactly your game, was it?
No, not at all. I spent 4 years at Kent State University and virtually failed every one of the classes except the ones that had to do with writing. American literature, English literature, writing, journalism. I excelled in all of that. But everything else, didn't do well at all, skipped my classes, was more interested in learning how to fly a plane, which is what I did in 1972.
Very cool.
Because Kent State University had a pilot's course and they had their own airport. But for the most part, I did not enjoy being there. It was a miserable time. It was also a time of self-discovery because, as I mentioned, I was failing everything but the writing-oriented classes. So I was finding slowly my niche. I was finding my life path. My calling was to go in the direction of writing. It wasn't all clear to me yet, but it was certainly clearer than working on the railroad. I knew I didn't want to do that.
Interesting, though, and ironic, because then you took your money, you left school, you headed to Dallas, and what happened?
Wow. I'm not used to interviewers who actually know my story.
If it's okay for you to share.
I'm impressed. Yes, it's okay. I never used to talk about it because what happened is I ended up going homeless. I was homeless, and people in later times would ask, what kind of car did you live in when you were homeless? And I would think, oh, it would have been so nice to have a car. I didn't have a car. I was literally homeless in Dallas, Texas. I spent a lot of time at the public library, mostly to escape the elements because Texas was a lot more extreme in heat than Ohio was, which is where I was born and raised. So in order to survive, I stayed in the public library during the days. It was air conditioned, they had a bathroom, they had water, and they had books. I love books. And I devoured all the self-improvement books, the self-help books, the philosophy, the metaphysics, the psychology, the pop psychology. I knew exactly where the decimal system was that took me right to that category in the public library. But I went homeless during that period. I had entrusted my savings to a company that promised to get me work doing labor on a pipeline, either in Alaska or in the Middle East. In the 1970s, that was a big deal, and they were offering to pay $70 an hour, which was unheard of. That's like lottery winning money in the 1970s. And my grand plan was to work for a year doing labor, but to save all of that money and then go on a sabbatical where I would pursue my writing. But the company who promised to do that, they went bankrupt. They disappeared. The owner committed suicide. And given the time and my resources back then, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know who to go to. I was entirely alone. It didn't take long for me to be penniless and then homeless. So that period was no party. That also lasted a long time because when I did finally get to Houston, I was in poverty for a good 10 years. So I definitely know what it's like to struggle. I know what it's like to starve. I know what it's like to be homeless. I know what it's like to feel hopeless. But I also know what it's like to get through all that.
How did you start putting the pieces together? Because from this book, I got that you met a wealthy businessman along your path, and you were able to ghostwrite a book. But there had to be a lot coming together before that. Yeah,
there was a lot before that. Go back to the Dallas Public Library.
Yeah.
I'm in the Dallas Public Library, and I'm reading all the self-improvement books, the Think and Grow Rich of the world, the How to Win Friends and Influence People. But there was also a book called The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol that came out in the 1950s. It's still around today, and it's still worth reading. But these books, in particular that one, was pointing to my reality as being my responsibility. It was pointing to the reality that I was creating it from my thoughts, from my thinking, from my beliefs, which is a huge, I can't even find the word to describe how big of a hard concept that is to chew on when you're homeless. It's one thing to say, well, a deal didn't work out and maybe it was my responsibility. It's another thing to say that I have nothing and I am on the streets and I am broke and I am homeless because of me. Because of my thinking. That is huge. That is so hard to get your head around. And I had to wrestle with that. And why? Because all the books were saying that. There weren't any exceptions to this. They were all pointing at me. They were all saying the man in the mirror is the one who has to change. So with this in my face and me wrestling with this, I came to the realization that a whole lot of what I was going through was self-created. And it was self-created because I had an operating belief. And the operating belief at that time was I wanted to be an author, like Jack London, Ernest Hemingway, people I admired. And they had miserable, alcoholic, suicidal lives. And in both of those cases, they ended as suicides. I thought my life had to model that in order for me to be a successful author too. So here I am unconsciously making decisions that are driving me into homelessness, driving me into poverty, driving me into misery. And why? Because a deeper part of me thought that was the curriculum. A deeper part of me thought that's the dramatic biography of an up-and-coming writer. I have to go through all that hell, not knowing I was creating it, in order to awaken to the fact that now I can be published because I paid my dues.
That is a wild concept of success your subconscious had.
Yes. But that's true for all of us. It's not that each of us has to go into homelessness, but each of us has this little agenda, this little scenario of how we think it needs to play out before we allow ourselves to have success. And this scenario is unconscious. This is where my teaching today is all coming from, because what I found was all of that stuff I was reading and listening to, it did help, but there were some missing elements to it. For one thing, everybody talks about changing their thoughts and changing their beliefs, and they try to do it on a conscious level. But that's not where the operating system is. The operating system in our lives is more hidden than that. It's below it in what some people call the subconscious, or you can call it the unconscious. I use both of those interchangeably. Until we do the work there, we're going to play out our lives unconsciously and blame everybody else and not realize we are writing the script. That's what I went through, and that's what I had to awaken from.
You've got all this self-help going into you, all of this good stuff is coming into you. How were you starting to rewrite that script for yourself?
Well, because I was doing it by myself, it was slow, it was hard, and I was resisting my own good. I was fortunate enough to know that there were science and mind groups, unity groups, Unitarian groups. These were all free. And I would go to them and hang out with the people who were trying to change like I was trying to change. And this goes back to how I made myself a musician out of nothing by bringing people around me who were already doing music. Mm-hmm. Well, in this case, I brought people around me who were already making small changes in their lives, and that affected me. It began to saturate in my life to make the change. But again, in my case, it took 10 years to get through poverty. And I think largely because we didn't have the internet, we didn't have wonderful shows like this, we didn't have all the bells and whistles and apps and technology and coaching and all these things we take for granted today. Back then, we didn't have any of that. Or if there were some of the resources, I either didn't know of them because we didn't have this huge communication facility like the internet, or I didn't have the funds for them if they cost anything at all. So for me, it was self-work, it was self-reflection, it was a slow, solo process.
So let's go from there, and thank you for sharing. Let's go from there and let's dive into your book. And we're going to start at the beginning. You paint a very vivid image at the beginning of the book of us being literally at war with money.
Yeah. Well, the beginning of the book is a very dramatic, almost movie-like experience where I am describing actually the reader going through a war zone, and everybody is firing these bullets, including the reader, off into the distance and off at trees and so forth. And a woman takes this person, the reader, by hand, takes them to where they've been shooting at, only to discover there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's no enemy there. And when the reader asks, why are we shooting? What is this all about? What is the war for? And she says that one line that I still get chills when I think about it. She says, for the love of money. For the love of money. And this is really the seed of what the book, The Awakened Millionaire, is all about. In many ways, I'm trying to end a war. And it's the war that begins internally first, because the conscious and the unconscious mind are at battle. Right now, consciously, I think everybody that's watching or listening would be saying something to the effect of, I like money, I want money, I have good reasons for money, I'm doing all the right things for money, I'm affirming money, scripting money, meditating money, blah, blah, blah around money. But they don't have money, or they're still struggling with money. Why? Because unconsciously / subconsciously, they think money's bad, money's evil, money's tainted, money's corrupt. And so part of them says, I want money. Another part says, you don't want money because it's bad. Clash. There's the battle that's going on inside. And much like when I was struggling with the poverty and homelessness, you don't even know there's a battle going on inside. All you know is your frustration that you don't have enough, or you can't pay your bills, or you're always in survival, or you're always struggling. But you don't know that that's stemming from the war going on inside. And then by extension, that very war gets played out by a lot of people on the planet who think, oh, I'm the have-not, you're the haves. And so they start robbing, lying, stealing, doing all kinds of things to each other, and the war gets amplified. So what I'm trying to do is end the war, not the one on the outside, because that's the playing field that all gets stemmed from what's inside. I want to end the one on the inside.
So there's a quote early on, a misquote, which is affecting all of our lives. Money is the root of all evil.
Yeah, everybody could say that without even hearing the evil word, because we've all heard it. And so it's in the collective unconscious that the root of cause of problems is evil. But the reality is that's a fragment of a longer sentence that's from biblical literature, and because it's considered to be thousands of years old, we don't even really know what we said. It's been translated, it's been passed down, retranslated, passed around as a fragment, and so we're confused about what's really said. But even the longer statement will help a little bit, because the longer one says, it's the love of money that is the root of all evil. Now, that doesn't sound all that much better until you realize that what I'm calling the awakened millionaire and the healthy, well-adjusted people who have a great relationship with money, they're not in love with money. This is so important to get. They're not in love with money. They appreciate money. They use money. They leverage money. They welcome money, but they're not in love with money. Well, when you realize that if you're not in love with money, then you've just made peace with that whole statement. If the love of money is the root of all evil and you're not in love with money, you're not playing in that field anymore. You've already reduced that to nothingness. You see, I'm trying to do my best to reframe money with people. And one of my favorite quotes is from Arnold Patton, who's another great spiritual teacher who influenced me decades ago. And he said, the sole purpose of money is to express appreciation. The sole purpose of money is to express appreciation. When I first heard that, I thought, oh, there's probably an exception or two. But I couldn't think of one. Mm-hmm. I thought, when I write my phone bill, I'm grateful to have a phone. When I write my internet bill, I'm grateful to have the internet. When I pay the mortgage or groceries or anything, I'm grateful. So the sole purpose of money is to express appreciation. This is so dramatically different than money's the root of all evil. So we want to appreciate money.
You joke about sending cookies to your debt collector.
Right.
So going from there, let's talk about a formula here, which is soul plus money equals more soul and more money. What does that mean?
Yeah, that's a big one. And I spend a large part of the new book, The Awakened Millionaire, discussing that. Because what I'm really talking about here is merging spirituality with the material. I don't come from the standpoint that they're separate. Mm-hmm. The spiritual and the material are two sides of the same coin. You're looking at the physical me, but there's the spiritual me within here. And so I want to live from my spiritual calling, from my soul purpose, from my life mission. If I lead from my soul purpose and I'm at peace with money, I know that it's not evil. I know that it's actually good. It's a tool that I can use to serve my life purpose. Then soul plus money will equal more soul plus more money. Which means if I'm following my life path and I'm okay with money, money is going to come in to support my life path. As I continue doing it, I will be able to enlarge the scope of my life paths, my soul's mission. And as long as I'm still okay with money, I will get more money as a result. One of my favorite quotes is from Walt Disney. And Walt Disney said, I want to make money from my movies so I can continue making movies. That's soul plus money equals more soul plus more money. It's not about the money. He didn't say, I want to make so much money that I am the king, I'm the titan of the movie world. He said, I want to make money from my movies so I can make more movies. That's where we want to come from, so that we're expressing our soul's purpose, and we've made peace with money, so money can come in to allow us to further express our soul's purpose. This is the wonderful journey. This is the journey of the Awakened Millionaire.
I love it. And on that note, how do you define millionaire?
Oh, that's a great one, because there's at least two ways to look at it. Obviously, if you got $1 million in the bank or $1 million in assets of some sort, somebody's got to say you're a millionaire. But I'm also calling a person with the mindset of wealth and prosperity a millionaire. It begins with the mindset. It was William James who talked about acting as if in order to create the reality of what you want. So if you can begin to think that you're already a millionaire in mind and in soul, you will actually create that from the law of attraction standpoint alone in your real world. But it's not strictly defined by the money alone. I'm talking more of not just the money, but the mindset. The mindset is first, the money follows after it.
Let's dive more into the mindset. And one of the pieces I think we need to get at is, what are counter intentions?
Oh, the counter intentions is, I was going to take a swig of water, but I'm so excited I'm going to put it down. This is important. I'm going to tell you, this was the missing secret in my life. And I've started a miracles coaching program. I've been doing it for 7 years. And I see this is the missing secret in everybody's lives, because we're all taught, even The Secret, as much as I love the movie The Secret, and I want everybody to see the movie The Secret, it's missing some elements that are crucial to making what it's promoting, the law of attraction, making that work. So first of all, we have the intentions. I love intentions. I think intentions rule the earth. Intentions are what you state for what you want to have, do, or be. You can state intentions for the next few minutes. I can state an intention for this interview with you. I can state an intention for the next week, next month, next year. Intentions are great. They align my body and mind, and we can talk about that in a lot of different ways. Intentions are great, but there's something called counter intention. And the counter intention is the vetoing belief in your unconscious. We've been talking about money here, so we'll just use that one. When people say that I intend to attract more money, and they might have a good reason for it, because I want to raise my family and I want to buy my car, or I want to pay my mortgage. It doesn't matter. I intend to attract more money is the conscious intention. Wonderful. However, if unconsciously they still think money's bad, money's evil, or money's limited, or I have to struggle for money, or money will in some way, shape, or form make me a sin or sinner, then you will veto the very intention you said you wanted. Why? Because the counter intention is in the unconscious mind, which is the power source. The unconscious mind is so many times bigger than the conscious mind, it dwarfs in understanding and in comparison. So consciously we say, hey, I want to go and do this. That's really nice. But if unconsciously you have beliefs that are opposite of that, those are called counter intentions, and they will stop you or stall you or slow you down until you question them, remove them, delete them, erase them, and are free from them.
It's fascinating. We were talking off air before the show that today is a very special day for our show. The last couple days have been a special day. Something special has happened on internet and Google with our search rankings, and all of a sudden we've doubled, tripled, quadrupled our downloads and our listeners literally overnight. And it is fantastic. We're already out in 176 countries, so this is just enormous. At the same time, I have serious butterflies. And I wonder if there are some counter intentions, some things going on under the surface for this fear, or if this is the fear that means I'm on track, on purpose.
Well, that's a great thing to look at. If I were personally coaching you, I would explore both of those. I would say something to the effect of, how do you feel about this exploding in your life right now and everything just growing so fantastically and unexpectedly? How do you feel about that?
And I would say I feel absolutely fantastic, but with a concern. So I've got the woohoo going on. And then there's the concern because I didn't create it. I'm doing this with ease. I did create it, but I didn't create it, if that makes sense. So there's a question of, it becomes an instant attachment. Yesterday, the numbers didn't even exist, but it comes out, ooh, can I continue this? Which is just wacky, wiggly worm thinking.
But what I'm hearing as an observer here is this is exactly you following your soul's mission and your soul's purpose.
Yes.
Because when you start following your spiritual calling, you start finding that paths open up. You start getting signs, you start getting clues, you start getting confirmations. This is one huge one. And the other thing I want to talk about, because you talked about these butterflies that seem to come with it, anytime we stretch out of our comfort zone, no matter what we're doing, anytime, we're going to feel nervous. But that nervousness, that butterfly feeling, that sense of some sort of unsettling fear possibly, doesn't mean don't go. It just means we're stepping out of something we haven't done before. When I went into the studio to make my very first albums, my adrenaline was off the charts. And I was thinking to myself, what am I doing? How am I there? But at the same time, I realized everything was manufactured for that moment. Everything was intended for that moment. I followed inspiration. I followed the clues. I followed the opportunities. And yeah, I'm naturally slightly nervous at that point because I hadn't done it before. It doesn't mean don't do it. It just means you're out of your comfort zone. That's why it was called comfort zone. You're now out of it. It feels uncomfortable. But based on everything you've told me, I think, man, hurrah for you. You are on the path. This is a confirmation for you. It is absolutely exciting. And yeah, you have the little bit of the mind game where we all get involved, but we just have to remind ourselves, hey, the moment is going to pass. Mm-hmm. Just go with the flow. Just enjoy this process. Look at the numbers, be entertained by the numbers, and just get up in the morning and do the next thing.
Woohoo! Thank you. So let's go from there and let's talk about how you call surrendering a high spiritual act.
Well, for me, surrendering is a high spiritual act, and this is something I had to learn along the way because, again, our ego, our conscious mind, thinks it's in control of everything. Mm-hmm. But the neuroscience and a lot of the brain science that's going on right now says, look, there's about, I don't forget what the numbers are, 14 million bits of information in any one moment. 14 million. Consciously, you're only able to receive about 7 bits of information, like a phone number. That's all. Out of 14 million bits of information, consciously you see about 7 bits. Unconsciously is all the rest of it. So consciously, we're not in charge of anything. We like to think we're in charge. We're not in charge. There's this deeper guiding force that's going on. Part of it is our own unconscious mind. It's already been programmed. It was programmed from birth, and some say even before birth, that's guiding us in a particular way. But then there's also the spiritual side of it. Underneath all of this is our unique spiritual calling. You have yours, I have mine. Each person has theirs, and we're probably all different. Not everybody wants to have their own show. Not everybody wants to be an author, a musician, and everybody's just different. So what we want to do is follow our spiritual calling. This is the soul purpose we were talking about with the formula. Soul plus money equals more soul plus more money. And we want to awaken to that. When we surrender to that, when we surrender to our life purpose, life works. And not just for you. It works for everybody. Because I look at life as like this giant orchestra. We got a musical theme going on here.
I love it.
But it's a beautiful orchestra. And when you play your instrument, and I play my instrument, and everybody else plays their unique instrument, we've got beautiful music. And so we want to surrender. You surrender to yours, I surrender to mine. And as we do that, the world blossoms.
All right, so we got to continue with this musical theme here. Mitch Van Dusen, he was fascinating to me because he grew up, he plays piano incredibly well, but he goes to his parents at 24 and he goes, why is it, I've played all these years and I play great now, but my right hand can kind of flash along the keys and my left hand is clunky, cumbersome, and is frankly a mess, but it's kind of who made me as I am. And they said, well, you had cerebral palsy, a mild case of cerebral palsy growing up, which numbed and made you weak on the left side. But that is what made him the unique individual with unique musical abilities that nobody else could have.
Yeah. It's a great reminder and great story. Instead of looking at that as a disability or as a weakness or as a failure, it actually was looked at as a positive that made him unique and made his musical abilities unique. Mm-hmm. And I think all of us can look at our lives and find something like that. But it's up to us to go, is that something that is a failure or a problem? Or is that something that actually makes us unique and gives us a skill in many ways that other people didn't have? So, yeah, thanks for reminding me.
Certainly. Can you tell us then from there about perfection? We all seem to have a challenge with this, particularly as we start to get going, or actually it often inhibits us from getting going because we want to be perfect out of the gate or else we're not going to go for it.
Right. Well, that's a great concept. There is no such thing as perfection. I wanted to be perfect for the longest time. When I decided I wanted to be an author and I put myself through this self-education program and I'm reading all the books, reading all the courses, and really applying myself, I would write book reviews in the early days. I got paid $20 to write a book review for Yoga Journal Magazine, East West Journal Magazine, New Age Journal Magazine, and it was a great love of mine because I got to read books and I got paid to write the review. And I would work so hard, I would chisel those words. And so when I was done, this was like a tablet from Moses. This was it. You can't change a word. And I would send it off because it was
Here comes the editor.
Right. Yeah, here comes the editor is exactly right. I'd see my article, my review in the magazine 3 months later, and I start reading it and go, where's the first paragraph? Where's the last paragraph? What happened to my transition? And at first I was upset, and then I realized, first, it actually was better edited. And second, nobody wrote into the editor and said, where's the first paragraph? Where's the last paragraph? Where's the middle section from Joe's writing? And so I realized there is no such thing as perfection. And as soon as I gave up trying to pursue perfection, I became far more prolific, far more creative, far more prosperous. I am not known as a guy who procrastinates at all. I've written 50 books. I've got 15 albums out. I have 70 ebooks that aren't even released yet, on top of all the ones I've already written. I've got my Miracles coaching program. I travel. I do all of these wonderful things and things I can't even remember because I do so much of them. But the main reason I can get them done is I follow inspiration, I state intentions and pursue them, and I gave up perfection. Gave up perfection. And that does not mean that we should settle for crap, that we want to settle for anything that's just below excellent. It just means that I'm not obsessed with making sure that a comma is arguably in the right place in my writing, for example. I will just give it to an editor and say, tell me what is the expected place for it to be. And if I agree with it, let it go. But there is no such thing as perfection.
So going from there, and this happens to be something you talk about, I believe, in The Secret, but you also discuss in here, and you just brought it up, what is the power or importance of speed and taking action?
Well, I think taking action is one of the missing secrets for people getting results in life. And they forget that even the phrase law of attraction, the word action is in attraction. It's one of the things Jack Canfield has pointed out. So you have to take action. We are in a world where we co-create our reality. Most of us are sitting around waiting for the divine to deliver everything to us. And the divine is basically saying, look, I'm meeting you part way. I'm giving you the idea. I've given you life. I've given you air and breath and motivation. You have to do the rest. So for me, I know as an entrepreneur, nothing gets done until somebody takes action. It's got to be me. And then second of all, I know that I love inspiration. I think inspiration is this glorious feeling where something from who knows what, God, the divine, the unconscious, is delivered to me, an idea of some sort. It comes as a gift. I didn't ask for it. I didn't pay for it. And there it is in my lap. So I treat it as a gift. I treat it as a gift. And I realize that if I act on that idea as soon as possible to the moment that I received it, a couple things happen. One is I use the energy of the idea to actually bring the idea into reality.
Please, let me pause you there. What do you mean by this?
Yeah, I want to explain that. Most people get ideas, and what they'll do is they'll take a piece of paper and they'll write their idea down. Yep. And then 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years, they'll go and look, oh yeah, but the energy is gone. It still looks like a good idea, but the energy that came with it is gone. Think back to the last time you had an idea, you or anybody listening or watching. There was an excitement that came with it. There was a rush of enthusiasm that came with it. I love that energy that comes with it. I want to put a saddle on that energy and ride it. Meaning that if I get an idea for a book right after this call or even during this, I want to make a note of it. And then as fast as possible, I want to ride the enthusiasm that came with the idea, because that is fuel. That is energy that will enable me to bring it into reality. So I don't want to wait. And that's one of my secrets, is I want to jump on the energy of inspiration to get it done. The other reason I want to get it done is that I know the universe has covered its bets. It has given the same idea to about a dozen other people.
Yes. Because
the universe has learned that not everybody's going to act on their idea. They're going to do what most people do, and they're going to talk themselves out of it. Not me, not now, don't have the education, don't have the fun, don't have the experience, and they won't do it. And so the universe has given the idea to me and a dozen other people, hoping one of us will bring it into reality. I want to be the first to do it, because the rule of thumb is the first person that brings an idea to the market is the first person who profits from it. So there's all kind of reasons to welcome inspiration, act on inspiration, and take that action now for the benefits that you're going to get from doing so.
You talk about bravery and taking on wild challenges like this. How do we know when we're doing something, when intuition strikes, how do we know when it's a good idea to do or I'm going too far?
Well, I don't know that you always know. I think what you have to do is learn to discern the difference between intuition and intellect. That's the first thing, because the intellect tends to be up here. It feels like a good idea, thinks like a good idea. You kind of got the mechanism up here with the brain activity. Yeah. But that intuition seems to come deeper. It seems to come in this body felt sense. And so if I have an idea for something, I want to check, is this coming from up here or is it coming from here? If it's coming from here, I'll pay a little bit more attention to it. I'm not going to dismiss thoughts that come up here, but I'm looking for the deeper energy, the body connection, the soul felt purpose, that spiritual inspired movement. That seems to come from here. And now I also know I'm not afraid of big ideas. In fact, I don't know if I wrote about it in the Awakened Millionaire or on a recent blog post, but I heard a billionaire with a B, say that if you go to a party and you tell somebody what your idea is, and they don't think you're crazy, then you haven't thought big enough. And I love that. I love that. It makes me question. It's like, well, how big am I thinking? So I don't want to really second guess it. I don't really want to water it down. I want to honor all ideas, but I want to check, is it coming from intellect or is it coming from intuition, the body felt sense? And if it's coming from the intuition, I'm more likely to act on it quicker.
I've got this ear-to-ear Cheshire cat grin right now because I was talking with my wife, Jessica, just before we came on the show, and I was saying, I just keep hearing these words this morning, you're not thinking big enough.
Yes. And I think most people aren't thinking big enough, including me. You know, I wrote a book on P.T. Barnum, the great circus guy, and it was called There's a Customer Born Every Minute. And one of the things I marveled with him is that he thought so big. He even talked, and I'm sure he was joking at the time, but this showed how big he was, how big thinking he was. He wanted to build a railroad to the moon. He wanted to build a railroad to the moon. And I'm thinking, this guy's in the 1800s. We barely have any sort of technology at that point. Here he is thinking about taking his show to other planets. That's thinking big. And I think we want to go in that direction. And I don't want to think, oh, that's preposterous or that's impossible. Because if we had gone back to P.T. Barnum's time and I showed him an iPhone, he'd think that was impossible. That was fabricated. That's a dream. But here we are living it. So think big and then think bigger than that.
I love it. So let's go from there, and we're kind of riding a roller coaster. I guess he didn't have a roller coaster back then, but we're riding a roller coaster. So we just hit a high. Now I'm going to take us to a little bit of a low here. Talk with us about the victim mentality we need to get past.
Yeah, the victim mentality, that's rampant. But I'm wearing a shirt. I don't know if you can see it, but it says, "It is what you accept."
Beautiful. Purple shirt, white lettering. It is what you accept.
It is what you accept. And what I'm doing here...
What you're saying is, it isn't what it is.
Right. Because it is what everybody says. And it's a statement of victim mentality. Mm-hmm. It's the rollover, I can't do anything about it, I just give up, that's what the authorities say, that's what the man says, that's what blah, blah, blah. And I'm saying, no, it is what you accept. If you accept that, then that's okay. But acceptance means that you have at least thought about it and you've made a choice. It puts the power back with you. The vast majority of people, like Henry David Thoreau had said, lead lives of quiet desperation. And that's because they feel like victims. They feel like they don't have any power, they don't have any control, or they have very, very little. I'm coming from the mindset is that you are a victor. You have more power, more choice, more ability than you ever fathomed, that you ever thought possible. And we have to learn how to do that. We have to learn how to start executing our own choices and being far more conscious about it, because the vast majority of people are struggling. They are struggling, they are unhappy, they are emotionally wounded, and they feel like there's no way out. And I know those feelings because I had them. I had them for half my life. You know, the homeless years, the poverty years, and then I saw it all around me with other people. But I've been around this enough to know that it begins with decisions. It begins with awakening. It begins with awareness. The fact that I wear this shirt is partly for me. It's a reminder to me that, hey, it isn't what it is what you accept. Mm-hmm. But it's also my way of broadcasting a new slogan out into the world as a mantra, as something that people can stop and go, wait a minute, maybe this sales deal didn't work out. Maybe the date didn't work out. Maybe what I was going for in terms of increased income didn't work out. That doesn't mean that I can't make a new decision right now. It doesn't mean that I can't use what happened as feedback, not failure, but feedback, and proceed to make a new choice and a new intention and create a new reality from that. So we want to stop being victims. We want to start being victors. And it begins with the title of the book, The Awakened Millionaire. It begins with awakening.
So going from there, what does it mean to anchor in love and gratitude?
Well, love and gratitude, I think, are the two most important feelings, emotions, transcending concepts that we can utilize to change our lives in a very moment. I wrote a book called Zero Limits, which is about Ho'oponopono, a Hawaiian healing system, which is going to go completely down a different road. But there are 4 key statements in it. I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you. And I've always said that if we just stayed with the love and the gratitude, Those two alone, if we walk through our days in our heads thinking, I love you, or I love me, I'm grateful, or thank you, as we walk through in each moment, we will transcend that moment. We will change our energy. We will send out different filters and different energies from a law of attraction standpoint, a different vibration, and all of our moments will transcend from that moment on. These are the two most powerful things we can do, and they cost nothing. All we have to do is remind ourselves of it. We can put little yellow stickies on our computer. We can put a tattoo, a temporary tattoo, or whatever people want that says love or thank you on there. I can go on and on with this because I know gratitude alone, if we just took gratitude, it's a higher energy. It's a more evolved concept. We're directly on the opposite of being a victim. If we start coming from gratitude, then we realize that everything in life is a gift. And in fact, if we really sat in this moment, and took an inventory of all that we have beyond what we're looking at. We might be grateful for our computer or our phone or our clothes or our life. But if we start looking at what the universe is giving us that we never think about, we're all getting air right now. I'm not paying for that air. It's just coming to me as a gift. I'm not floating around in space because the gift of this gravity, this unusual, bizarre little physical thing that keeps me in my chair. I mean, we can go on with things that we pay nothing for, that we are given without request, and our life is sustained unconsciously, subconsciously with this system that's working in our body. When we start moving in that direction, we can be in this moment and go, my God, this is a miracle. This is a miracle right here. We don't need anything else. Past is gone, future isn't here, but we're in this moment. It's the miracle.
I love it. It is to bring things full circle from there. Our relationship with money must come down to gratitude.
Well, I love it. This goes back to the Arnold Patton thing. The sole purpose of money is to express appreciation. When we start moving into that mindset, if that's the number one takeaway people take today, it's going to transform their relationship to money today. And that's the whole idea that no matter what they're paying for, they're going to go pay for some coffee after this. They're giving their $3 or whatever to the store, to the clerk, to the maestro. Just say thank you. Unconsciously say it, subconsciously, consciously say it. Move into the direction that your relationship with money is based on gratitude. The more you're grateful for it, the more you say it, the more you feel it, the more you will attract it, the more you will have it, and the more you'll be able to say grateful, I'm grateful for that as it enlarges in your life. So I love it. Love, gratitude, it's all wonderful.
Beautiful. Can you tell us, why should we look for butterflies for our reticular system?
Well, in the Awakened Millionaire, I talk about a talk I gave for a magic convention. And I asked everybody in the magic convention, how many butterflies do you see in the room? And of course, we were in a conference center. They saw no butterflies at all. And I began to tell them how the reticular activating system in their brain works. And the RAS in our system, it's a brain technology. This is a term in science. It's at the base of your brain stem above their spine there. Mm-hmm. And it's designed to do one major thing. It's already hardwired. It's designed to keep you alive. And it's doing your job because you're alive, I'm alive, and everybody watching, listening is alive. So the reticular activating system, pre-programmed to keep you alive, is filtering that 14 million bits of information I mentioned earlier. It's filtering it, and it allows anything relevant to your survival to enter your conscious awareness. Otherwise, it's all filtered out. You don't get to be aware of it. And which is fine. But the thing most people don't know is that you can program your reticular activating system to do more. If there's something you would like to have, do, or be, if you create a visual of it, have an emotion attached to that visual, hopefully love or passion or something along those lines, and you repeat it, you will be pre-programming your brain, your reticular activating system, to look for, out of the 14 billion bits of information, anything relevant to that goal. At that magic talk, I was talking about butterflies, and I said, when you go out through your day, you're going to notice butterflies. It may not last tomorrow and the next day because you have to keep reinforcing this desire. But for that day, you will find butterflies because you told your brain, you gave it an assignment. You said, I want to see butterflies. Well, we can do this with any goal. If somebody wants more money, if they want to meet their soulmate, if they want their bigger house, the better job, change their health, whatever it happens to be, you do it by pre-programming your reticular activating system. And again, you do it in three ways. The one is you have an emotion with it. Most of us will attract what we love, what we hate, what we fear. You want to focus on what you love. You want to focus on your passion. What would you welcome into your life that would be a delight? So you got the emotion. Then you want a visual representation of that, because your brain responds to images. So cut out a picture of a magazine, go get the brochure of the car, whatever it happens to be. And then the third is to repeat this morning, evening, whenever it's fun for you, because now you're pre-wiring the reticular activating system to bring you something new on top of keeping you alive.
I love it. I think we should all do that. We're going to have a few wrap-up questions, maybe time for real brief meditation. Before that, I got to ask, because this is like step 4, how did you manifest the gull wing?
Oh, well, that's a whole nother subject. Well, I did it by activating my reticular activating system, because the 1955 vintage Mercedes SL 300 Gullwing is considered an icon of a car. It is one of the most beautiful, majestic cars ever. It's got the doors that open up on the side. They made 1,500 of them in 1955, 1956. Most of them are still around. Well over 1,000 of those cars are still around. They sell for $1 million and up. They are highly collectible. I saw one go for $6 million at one point. Somebody recently had one that was the same owner for 57 years. How many people own their cars for 57 years? Same owner, the Gullwing Mercedes, 57 years before they sold it. I think he passed on. And so I was programming my reticular activating system with my love for the car. I collected material about the car. I collected books. I collected magazines. I collected photos. So what am I doing? I got love going for the car. I've got the imagery going for the car, and I'm doing it on a regular basis. I'm doing this whenever it feels like it. It feels good for me to do it. So I'm really firing up the reticular activating system. I'm really going deep there. And geez, do you want to go this deep? Because
I want to go this deep because I had a model of that car growing up. And
you did?
And so when I read this, my jaw hit the floor. I'm like,
wow.
I know that car.
You know it well then. Well, I did something that was even deeper and more beyond the reticular activating system and most of what we're talking about here. As I was meditating on the car, I actually had this breakthrough. You can call it a Satori experience if you like. But I went into what I'm calling the fourth dimension. We know what the first, second, and third, we're participating in the third here. But the fourth dimension to me is that invisible field that this dimension is growing out of. It's almost like the energy field that is molding you, me, my computer, my water, all these things that we take for granted that are around us. In many ways, as Buddha said, they're illusions. They're not really real. So the fourth dimension is what's behind the illusion, what's making up the illusion. And so I mentally went into the fourth dimension, and I thought, well, can't I attract the car by making it in the fourth dimension and making it come to me? So in other words, much like we create everything else as a mold, as a piece of plastic, I wanted to actually see if energetically and esoterically I can create this car. So I did this, and then I suddenly got the inspiration to check eBay. Now, inspiration.
And when I asked just real briefly, by doing this, was this putting yourself in kind of a hypnotic or hypnagogic state or a half-awake state?
It was definitely a half-awake, probably self-induced, semi-hypnotic trance. But I also think it was beyond that. I've been doing hypnosis since the 1960s. And so I know what hypnosis is, but I really think that this was more of a mystical adventure into the field of all possibilities. And so the best way for me to describe it is in a mental way and in a hypnosis way, but I actually think it was deeper and beyond that. So after I came out of this, I was inspired to check eBay for a Mercedes SL 300 Gullwing, which would be almost impossible to find them on eBay because they go through collectors, they go through big auctions. But I went on eBay because I was trusting my intuition. I was trusting my inspiration. And to my shock, there was a SL 300 Mercedes Gullwing replica. And my first thought was, I didn't know that there were replicas. I didn't know that replica ever existed. And I looked at the car, and it's an exact replica. The biggest difference was all the weaknesses from the original car were improved in the replica. meaning the original car didn't have air conditioning. Well, I live in Texas. You can't live without air conditioning. The replica had air conditioning. The original car had these heavy drum brakes that you'd have to stomp on to stop the car. The replica has modern brakes, modern steering, modern engine. So you've got the look, you've got the feel, you got the gull wings, and of course it sells for a phenomenal percentage less than what a real one does. Short answer is I bought the car and got the gull wing and have enjoyed driving it and loving it. But it all came out of, I reduced it all to the fourth dimension. I reduced it all to going, I stepped into I pierced the fabric of reality and went into the energy field that creates the illusion we see around us. That's how I did it. And I have that long chapter that's in the book, The Awakened Millionaire, where I describe all of that.
As above, so below.
Exactly.
So couple quick wrap-up questions, and we'll see where we're at. First off, what advice would you give parents today for teaching their kids about money?
That's a great question. I have no kids of my own, but what I've realized is that they are modeling your behavior. It's not what you say, it's what you do. So they need to see you being comfortable with money. Mm-hmm. They need to see you being at peace with money. When I was growing up, the worst arguments I saw with my parents, and they were fierce, bloody arguments, was over money. So that was telling me money was a problem. And of course, I concluded money was scarce and all those things that I had to de-wire and remove from myself today. So I would say that you want to be at peace with money so they see you at peace with money. They want to see you comfortable with money so that they will be comfortable with money. Again, it's not what you're saying, it's what you're doing. So be at peace with it. They will see that and they will model that.
Woohoo! So a question we like to ask just before the end is, what personally brings you the greatest happiness, or what I call the woohoo factor?
Wow, so many things do. I'm so glad to be alive, so glad to be in a relationship, so glad to have my health. I'm in love with inspiration. Whenever I receive an idea, whether it's for a blog post, a book, a song, that's the wow feeling. That is like, wow, the universe gave me, it's like Christmas. The universe gave me another gift, mm-hmm. and I didn't ask for it. And I get excited about it going, wow, where's this one going to go? Because I never know. That's the thing. You get these gifts of inspiration. And it's probably worth mentioning that most people want a guarantee. They get a gift of an inspiration. They think it's a product or service. They want to follow it, and they want to assure that it's going to mean money. I never know that. I'm following my inspiration because I love following inspiration. It's a little bit like Walt Disney in the movies. He wants to make money from the movie because he loves making movies. I want to follow my inspiration. That's what makes me most excited. Whether it's for new music, new book, speaking, it doesn't matter. The inspiration is exhilarating. That's what makes me excited.
You're an inspiration adventurer.
I am, and I love it. I love it.
So where can people go to find out more and to find your books, your programs, coaching, everything?
Well, the book is everywhere. The book is at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever books are sold. The Awakened Millionaire, there is the Kindle version of it for anybody with their Kindle reader. There is the hardback version of it at bookstores, and there is an audio version. I read the book, so you can have the audio. iTunes, Audible.com, they all sell it. So wherever books are, the Awakened Millionaire is there. The portal site for me is simply myname.com, joevitale.com. You can also get there by using my nickname, which is Mr. Fire, mrfire.com, or Joe Vitale, vitale.com. Will get you to the main site. And from there, articles, blog posts, videos, catalog, 25 years worth of past articles, photos. I mean, just pack a lunch. You'll be there a while.
I love it. And if you're driving down the road and you don't remember that, although Mr. Fire is pretty simple, go over to inspirenationshow.com. We'll get you over there. Do you have time for a very brief meditation?
Sure.
Let me ask you one last question, then we'll do that, because I won't be able to ask anything afterwards. I'll be mush, which is any last words of wisdom you want to share with people?
Whatever you're going through right now is simply current reality. And current reality will always change. It's going to change on its own just by the nature of the ebb and flow of life. But if it is what you accept, take on my bumper sticker t-shirt here, it is what you accept. and make new choices in the direction of coming from faith rather than fear, going in the direction of following your dreams, then you're going to speed up the acceleration of your transformation, and life will become different. So you have a stake in this. You can make the decisions. You can make the change. It all begins with making decisions right now. And as for the little meditation, I have one that really can lead to an awakening, and it only takes a minute or two. And this ties into the book, The Awakened Millionaire. So what I do is I ask people, you have thoughts right now, and you're aware of your thoughts. Mm-hmm. Thoughts are coming and going, which is fine. That's the nature of the human mind. It's going to generate thoughts. But I ask people to ask themselves, can you notice that you are not your thoughts? You are a witness to your thoughts. Somehow you are separate from your thoughts. And as you sit with that, you notice that you have a body. Maybe you're totally comfortable, maybe you need to move a little bit, but you're in a physical body. Hopefully it feels great. Hopefully you're totally healthy. But notice that you are observing your body. You are somehow a witness to your body. You are not your body. You are in your body. And then notice your emotions. This has been a rollicking, inspiring, fiery interview, so maybe your emotions are really high right now. But whatever the emotions are, notice that you're not your emotions. You're a witness to your emotions. You have them, you can sense them, you can describe them, but you aren't them. And so, if you're not your thoughts, and you're not your body, and you're not your emotions, what are you? I venture to say that you are this witness to all of it. And that witness can be called your spiritual center. It can be called your soul. It can be called the divine. That witness that's in you is the same witness in Michael, the same witness in me, the same witness in everybody listening or watching. It's the background energy source to our lives. The more we can take time to identify with the witness, going past the thoughts, back past the emotions, past the body, the more we're going to touch the superhuman part of ourselves, the part of ourselves that can have, do, or be anything because it has no limits. It has no counter intentions. It has no negative beliefs. So the more you can identify with the witness behind your thoughts, your feelings, and your body, the more you can have, do, or be virtually anything you can imagine.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. This has been a true honor and a pleasure, and I can't recommend The Awakened Millionaire enough. I had a ball with this book. So for everyone, oh, thank you. Got to crank it back up for the finish. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get the Awakened Millionaire, and become an Awakened Millionaire, and shine bright. Woo!
Godspeed to all of you, and thank you, Michael. Love what you're doing.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. I'll let you know before we go on air, and if there's ever anything I can do to help you out, let us know.
Thank you. Congratulations on all you're doing.
Thank you, and to you as well. Blessings. Right. Take care. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, inspirenationshow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!